Welcome to the SPL Rundown, your weekly look at all of the SPL action. This week we have Frost, Lermy Wormy, and the coach of the Camelot Kings. Biggy is here to break down all the games. Stick around for my interview with Sheento, the midlaner for the Atlantis Leviathans. But first, I think we got to talk about week 3. And let's start, since Biggy is here, with the Kings versus the Valkyries. You know, all I got in my notes is that it looked pretty simple and easy for the Kings, and Big Man really looked like he is coming into form. Biggie, you want to sort of maybe take us through how you guys felt about this first set?
Yeah, I mean, Valkyries is like a weird team because I don't think they're playing that well, and they're also all on high pings, so it's kind of hard to really get a gauge of like how good we are. Like, in my opinion, we should kind of be stomping a team like that because they're pretty limited in what they can pick and kind of how they can play, and I think we're also just playing a bit better maybe as a team. So it was pretty straightforward. I think drafting it felt pretty straightforward, and then we played really clean. So that's kind of my input. It was kind of a set that we should be like dominating, I think.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys definitely did dominate. I think the final kill count here was 33-4, so you guys really didn't give the Valkyries any room to breathe. Frost or Lermy, what are your thoughts on this set?
Yeah, I mean, kind of just really simple, clean smite. There's not really a whole lot that you can do as the Valkyries, like with most of them playing on ping, and they're not really drafting gods that are super easy on ping either. Like especially, I'm thinking like Ao Kwang, like Johnny, man, you gotta really have like perfect timing to be getting the Ao Kwang stuff off that you need to do, and like he is a god that really does demand very high execution. Like Johnny is someone who has played it before, who really does love the hyper carry style, but like I don't know, man, just going for the simple, like easy setup. Like I feel like the Kings definitely understand like their limitations in like what they can play well from ping. Like it's kind of like even throwing it back to Cherio, who had like the insane Naja on a million ping, and like that's kind of the same thought process here. Is like going for just really simple, clean, easy smite and like executing it as it should be is what works a lot better than trying to go for. I mean, it's not that these drafts are bad, right? But it's like a lot harder to do in that kind of situation.
Sure, yeah. What you're saying is reminding me of sort of just picking like Neja Kukulkan and, hit 2 ults and you probably can't get a kill, right?
Yeah.
Frost?
Yes, I noticed genetics in the first game. Rush's boots ran off to the solo lane, and that's where the main focus was the entire time. Ducky, you said, Valhalla could not breathe. Ducky, of all people. You going Naja up, King Arthur up, is just, boy, had no room to maneuver. In the second one, though, he had Umoja, and he took it to the duo side, or just kind of played it a lot more passive. The first one, very controlling. Second one, not so much. Is it because the character pick, first one Ymir, second one Umoja, or is that more so Valhalla is very, very late game oriented, and did you want to go late on purpose to try and sort of train with them?
Are you asking me, or do you think like they were?
You or
like,
if anyone has insight for it.
I think their draft was very late game, and our draft was very strong early, and we had a winning matchup in solo, and we just abused that. There's kind of nothing they can do if you're getting run at as Ao Kwang, kind of Guan Yu as Arthur Naja, Ymir, kind of. I think we just played to our strengths, and there's literally nothing they can do. I mean, they could kind of go to the other side of the map and try and make something happen, but they're playing Xingtian, which I don't think. I mean, he's fine for playing aggressively, but maybe they should have focused on doing that a bit more. But our picks were just stronger there, so.
Yeah, Raffer to me was always like very iconic with the sort of play style, but he would have different characters around it. Like this is sort of the first time around that I'm seeing Raffer kind of go to very specific picks, and he's kind of faltering a little bit. But again, ping, all that good stuff. Xingqian is very good with high ping. It's a lot less limiting than say a Sobek. You pluck, you wait, and you're under tier 2 somehow.
Yeah. I think it was actually really smart of the Kings to basically like ban Sobek #1, because that seems to be like the priority support pick for all the supports who are maybe sort of on a higher ping, because I think I heard in a cast that, you know, if the Sobek's on the other team, you just might not have the chance to beads the pluck, right? So I think it was really smart of the Kings to ban Sobek. Is that sort of the thought process for you guys, Biggie? Like, you know, make sure they can't be on gods that they're comfortable on, or try to take advantage of the ping to some extent?
Yeah, it's kind of two-pronged. It's really strong in the meta. I think if it wasn't as strong in the meta, we wouldn't be that bothered. But it's also, yeah, like, if my support and my mid laner can't beat the god, then I don't want to lose games late game because of that. You know, it's kind of, it's just, we're just crutching, right? Like, until all of our teams here, we're just doing our best to kind of crutch in our picks and bans as well as we can around the ping, and then play as well as we can from there. So yeah, it's kind of both, but I think we are kind of, yeah, in a much worse position against that god specifically compared to like all the teams in NA because of that reason. Yeah.
Well, and it seems like the ping really isn't affecting Big Man too much. He's basically like popping off at all these sets. Like, I think on Tiamat he went 7-0, right, in game 1, and
It did. Good lord.
deathless for the whole set here. You know, Big Man's been looking pretty good. I don't think anyone would say the ping is really affecting him. Is that how you guys are feeling too?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's easily one of the best players in the game right now, and so playing well. He knows kind of his, like, the picks he has to play right now, and we just play around that. And yeah, he's just playing really well. There's not much else to say about it.
Sure. Oni Warriors versus the Olympus Bolts. I think this week we really saw the rise of Tiamat coming to the mid lane. I think almost every set this week had a Tiamat mid, and I think Tiamat's starting to look pretty good. I think before this week, she had not won a set or even a game. If I maybe Sheento had played her and won a game.
I think there were 2 before this week. 2 wins, and it was like 2-3 or something.
Sure. Okay, but it seems like the SPL mids are sort of becoming a little bit more familiar with Tiamat and really getting the most out of her kit. I feel like Venenu played great in this set, dying twice and getting something like 12 or 13 kills in both games here playing the Tiamat. Is this something you expect all sort of SPL mid laners to eventually pick up and try? I think we saw Dardas maybe experiment with it last week and things like that too.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a little bit less likely after she gets her nerf in the next patch, where she's going to be losing that extra wave of split push minions. So it's going to take a lot more to really commit to the split push than it did before when she had the 6. So I think that she's still very viable and that she has a ton of damage, a ton of mitigations and things like that, but it's going to be a lot less obnoxious in terms of like that, just not really insta win, but like kind of free plus that you get from just picking Tiamat.
Sure.
But again, you know, she's a very strong late game. Once you get to that point, it's all really about, can you get to that point? And you know, she does have certain weaknesses that can be exploited a little bit, but it's still like an incredibly strong pick in the right hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think teams are starting to play a bit better in scrims and in SPL, and so like the picks are kind of having more impact. I feel like early on in scrims, like when teams first started scrimming, people were probably losing a lot on it because they hadn't played it a lot or they weren't sure if it was good, and then she kind of like fell out of favor, and then now she's just being like first picked every game. But for me, I just think she kind of obviously has a weaker early game, but she just kind of does everything well. She's like juiced Melon. Like, why would you play Melon when you could just play her? Yeah.
Sure. Rob, your thoughts on Tiamat?
As far as Tiamat goes, I feel she's a bit on the strong side, or at least has too much going on for her. And that's why teams are struggling against it, because it almost looks a bit elementary, where they gave Venenu just enough room to drop his combo where it's the stun into the 1, and then you go full Dargan, because you cannot do anything against her after she's decided to jump in, right? She's either going to knock you up, or if you're going to try and CC her, she's going to press her ultimate, big Ratatusker too.
Yeah.
You know, so for like that split second, she is in full control when she arrives onto the battleground. And that is like, I think her strongest point is that people are sort of not used to playing around that very specific scenario. That's when Veneno would come up big with like 2-3 kills. Is those fights where they just sort of, I don't know, just fell apart in dealing with her. You know, every character has their formula of how they're going to operate. That one has a very, very obnoxious and a very massive window of opportunity, and it's just maybe they haven't had enough practice around it yet.
You know, not to take away from the Olympus Bolts at all, but I did sort of want to mention that the game ending for the Oni Warriors, it seemed sort of even up until, you know, some Fire Giant calls and ending calls where kind of gets a little sloppy. Is that just part of the growing pains that this Oni Warriors roster is going to go through? It seemed like in both games this set, you know, they almost had a chance to end and then a bit of a misplay and the Bolts come sort of roaring back and end it pretty quickly.
Those are issues on both teams, right? So
Sure.
for Oni, it felt like every time they were given a chance, they would falter on it. They just get slapped back.
Mm-hmm.
The Bolts, though, and that's like new team, new synergies. Okay, the Bolts having most of their core still here, that's almost iconic at this point. We remember last year they threw against Radiance, 3 Phoenixes down. It was Renegades that was the only 3 Phoenix comeback.
I think that was against PK, wasn't it? PK
was
versus
it PK?
Radiance.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Radiance threw there.
Was it Radiance? No, it was a very iconic Barracuda team moment. It was a top 4 team, so you can't really fault them too much, but it was like all 3 Phoenixes down. All they had to do was get the Titan. Went on for an extra 30 minutes, and then they got pushed back down. So this one, I was scared that they were going to slip out of it a few times. But Oni just didn't have the synergy to actually press down on them. Bolts right now is a very reactive team. I feel they do work towards the objectives, but even in the fights that went well was because the Oni jumped on them, even with Bolts having a lead.
Sure.
So they can't rely on the other team being so proactive. I think eventually they are going to have to start making the steps themselves.
Biggie, your thoughts on the Oni Warriors here?
I think that is the team that's going to take some time. I feel like the SSG roster, for me, the most important piece was Cherrier. And so losing Cherrier, I think they lose a lot of their shot calling, a lot of their leadership, a lot of their aggression. Like, I know Fred's an aggressive player, but he's not kind of overly aggressive on the map. I don't think always like an initiator as much as Cherrier, whereas like Cherrier was always the first one in. So I think for those other SSG guys, it's going to take them a bit of time to kind of get used to Fred, and also Niels probably plays very different to Rafa.
Sure.
But I think also they're just like the same thing. They're drafting. I know that Fred, speaking to him kind of in DMs, he's like, he gets tilted by ping a lot because I played with it. I coached him, and he would just like, it frustrates him a lot, and he feels like he can only play like two or 3 gods in the jungle, and those gods aren't that strong right now, in my opinion. So I think it's a bit of a mix of taking time to get used to playing together, and also just they're kind of a bit handicapped at the moment by ping.
Yeah, I did want to point out that basically the mid 3v3 for this Oni Warriors team stayed the same between both of these games. And I know we talked to Slaney last week saying that there might be a little more experimentation. We really did not see too much experimentation from Dardas here. He tried Tiamat last week, and now he's like, you know what? I'm just slamming Afro because Afro seems good. And, you know, and Dardas, of course, has played very well on Afro in the past, so no reason to not slam the Afro. Do you find it a bit like a good thing that they're trying to be consistent with this mid 3v3? Is that like a way to build some chemistry without, you know, changing the god picks?
It'd be the easiest one, you know, because if we change too much, at some point don't know what's right, what's wrong. So now it's like, you know what? We know Dardas has a good Afro. Let's try and work into that. Like, we've seen that pop off. So keeping the core 3v3 is a very easy way to just sort of build any monicum of synergy.
Sure.
Just at this point, they're looking for something to hold them off until they're here in North America.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they didn't play more Afro this week. I think they played it the week before, and especially it seemed like Fred wanted to last pick Osiris, and so I think they played Morrigan Osiris or something, which it didn't really make much sense to me. I don't think there was a good Morrigan transform in the game. He was kind of changing his transform every kind of team fight. And I feel like if he just played Afro, I think Afro is also a good god that forces you to play together. So I feel like he should just probably be spamming that god a bit more, especially in SPL. I think it looked good the week before. They just didn't close out games.
Right. It's time to move on to the match of the week. Their set of the week, I think the Atlantis Leviathans versus the Jade Dragons. I think everyone was expecting for this to be a pretty good game. And I think game one, maybe we were left a little bit disappointed. But game two sort of definitely answered the billing there. We got a very back and forth game. The Leviathans actually end up having more kills in game two, but the Jade Dragons do take it. And we sort of see the Awilix Sobek combo of the past sort of become something that the Leviathans really relied upon in that game two to gain advantages across the map. What are you guys' initial thoughts on the Jade Dragons versus the Leviathans? Lermy, you want to start us off here?
I just feel like Daji kind of sucks. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, right now, she just, like, especially in a meta where beads are so good, like, she gets countered out by so many things, like, including Shell, which is still very good right now. She will be receiving buffs in the future, so, like, that's coming, and, like, hopefully that helps her out a little bit, and especially with Shell getting changed, that will make her a bit better, but right now, just, like, all she does is burn damage, right? Like, she doesn't have like a super good burst, like especially if you're not going like Boomba's hammer style, that kind of thing. Like, she just takes a very long time to do what she wants to do, and she has a very inconsistent escape movement ability. So it's like, you have all of these minuses, and there's not really any big plus, right? You hit like a good ult, you pull beads, okay, cool, but like the ult is still a very long cooldown, so you have to once again pull the ult, hope they don't get out of range, hope they don't have beads, and hit everything for that to actually do anything. So it just takes too long, it's very inconsistent, and she just is not, like, super meta IMO.
Go
ahead, Biggie.
That's all right. I just agree with that. I think also game two they had a better draft, and the Leviathan strength for me is Ronyu and Panatom, their synergy and kind of the way they play the map together. When they're on point and they are playing aggressively and they get early game kind of inroads or kills, then that's when they're at their best, and I think that's what they did game two. And I kind of agree that Daji is kind of very situational. I think very situational.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like, Panatom on a more early game god that like has the ability to push the lead forward and like funnel the farm into Sheento just feels so much better for that squad. Like, with Panatom able to do something in the early game, like that team just feels like so different. Like, they are kind of like the late game people. Like, they want to play for the team fights and the engagements like around fire and things like that. And Awilix isn't like perfect around those kind of things, but at least she's able to get some kind of advantage in the early game so that the Leviathans have like a little more wiggle room. So I definitely think that was a better look for them in game two.
Sure. Frost, your thoughts?
This one about as well as I'd expected, especially within the first one. Once the lead started to get very surmountable, you got PBM whipping out animosity on Fenrir. Like, the boy was planning on building compassion, but just in the end, it's like, there's no way I'd throw this lead. Surely not. Into the second one, that kind of carries over, and boy, I'm starting to feel that 2-1 if I'm trolling energy. Right? They did not start off well, like you said. They ended up with less kills than the Leviathans did, and I was starting to think this is the team that could potentially like take one off of them. I still think they're going to go on an undefeated streak in spite of their trolling. I think this shows more though that Jade Dragons are extremely close to their ceiling, as a lot of other players have sort of noted. The only place left for them to go is down, and I think it's going to be like somebody's going to clown on that team at some point. They're going to break. They have to absolutely troll their minds out. Even as a fan, you're waiting for that lull, that moment of like, wait, who are you losing to? They probably lose to the Scarabs. I don't know. Like, just from how much they absolutely troll their games each and every time, and it hurts to watch. Leviathans, man, they're so good in their team fights and their drafting phase. That yes, that Daji completely threw me off. Even more so the build. I don't know. You didn't go for full cooldown to just be a beads burner, and you didn't go for full damage the way that adapting does. Yeah, he goes 4 and 11, but boy, his damage is up there. I can't see the picks and bans because of the thing right now, or the order. I'm not sure if he was just trying to get a 1v1 on Sam, because I've noticed a lot of teams' success, sort of, at least last year, was due in part to junglers soloing each other, you know? And I think Daji has a really bad matchups to know a lot of things, but I think into a Hunbat, she has a more favorable 1v1, you know? And it's very, not really Panatom style, but you got to break out of the team fights and look to make a little more room if you're going to get in on the dragons, because that's sort of their own flaw that they put in there, is that they will take the 1v1s, and if you can get a better one on Sam, then sure, why not?
This week, I had the pleasure of sitting down with the mid laner for the Atlantis Leviathans Sheento to talk about the new roster and Season 8 so far. Check it out. Hey guys, I'm here with Sheento, the mid laner for the Atlantis Leviathans, to talk about sort of the new roster and the early on success that this team has had. So I think a lot of people really want to know sort of how this roster came to be. I think I expected that you guys would probably try to stick it together, because I feel like we've seen success from teams that sort of stay together over time, and usually that leads to teams doing well in worlds and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about what happened and why Netroid left, and then how you decided to pick up Julio and move Yarkor to ADC? Because I feel like it probably was all sort of one process, right?
Yeah, first of all, hello Abe. Great, thanks for the invite me, and hello everyone is watching here. So the first is at the beginning of the year when we lost at the Worlds was a tough loss,
Mm-hmm.
but at the beginning of the year was like, yeah, we're gonna stick together. We're gonna try to do better things to be better,
Mm-hmm.
like in the game, to the communication. But then Julio hit me up, and it
Mm.
was Julio was, yo, you guys have something, or you guys wanna do something about the team, or thinking about something.
Sure.
And it was like, yeah. I mean, and I talked to the team, and we talk a lot about this, and we decide to bench Nitroid
Mm-hmm.
to bring Julio here. And the big reason was the environment. The environment with Nitroid was kinda bad sometime, and that's why I think we fell off a lot in the year,
Sure.
because the
Sure.
environment was not too good.
Yeah, so I mean, you're basically gaining a rookie with Julio. What were your expectations for him? Do you think he would fit so comfortably starting out, or did you think there was going to be uh, a learning curve or a warm up period for him in this league?
Now, we know Julio is a really good player. In Best Lab, he destroyed everyone in the SML too, and we know he's a confident guy. We know he's gonna do really well, so we are confident about his playstyle and how he's gonna do in this build.
Was it really just his sort of success with Belt Slap that was able to convince you guys that he would do okay in the SPL? I think we've seen a lot of the players from that Belt Slap roster find their way into the SPL this season.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of things. First of all, Jarkor wanna move on from the solo,
Mm-hmm.
so we need to find a solo laner, and the only solo laner is left, and is really good, and he's speaking Spanish. That's a big thing too. Is
Sure.
Julio. So the only one was Julio, because we have a lot of laner, but we wanna stick to like Spanish comps.
Sure.
That's
Sure.
why we picked up Julio.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Yarkor moving to ADC. It sounds like that was a lot of his decision, maybe not wanting to play in the solo lane. Did you think Yarkor would look so comfortable in ADC too? I mean, it's not very often we see players switch from solo to ADC. I think the only other memorable one is Cyclone Spin around season 2, season 3 time. And Yarkor looks sort of the most comfortable ADC I think we've seen. He's jumping in on odd herd, things like that. He's really trying to get in there. Do you think was this expected out of Yarkor? Because I certainly didn't think. I thought it would take some time. I always think it's going to take some time, but you guys are proving me wrong.
Yeah, for us, we know Jarko and we know Jarko is a beast. He can play whatever role he wants. He just too good as my whatever role he play. He's really good as my.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the SPL, I was in a stream and I was streaming and a lot of people was saying, what you think Jarko is gonna do in ADC? What you think Jarko gonna do? And I always say Jarko is gonna be the best ADC in the league.
Mhm.
Maybe not now, but in 3 months, 4 months, gonna be the best. And if you all see now in these 5 matches we play, he's playing like really well, like one of the two best ADC in the league. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm just more surprised that he's not. We see a lot of times, like we see with Emilito coming back in, he's playing like Jingwei all the time, playing a little passive, and Yarkor is like always jumping in, playing aggressive, always really sort of wants to push the aggression there. And I think that was something that was a little bit, you know, I think usually when players switch to a role they're not used to, they maybe tend to play a little more passive than aggressive, and Yarkor just hasn't done that at all.
Yeah, he knows he's really good as mine, I think, and he
Mm.
knows what's gonna do and what not gonna do. So I think he's very confident, and that's why he plays so aggressive. And two, he's a solo laner. He used to like fight all the time and hit people all the time. That's why he's so aggressive too. So
Sure, sure. The last thing I wanted to mention is I know that you guys teamed up with Haddix a couple years ago, and now Haddix is sort of finally in the SPL. Do you think it's maybe a little bit well deserved for him? Finally, he's got his time sort of in the spotlight. This is another one of the rookies coming into the league this year. What are your thoughts on Haddix and how he's been fitting into the Bolts?
yeah, for sure. Harix has like 2 years or something. He deserves to be in the SPL. He's a really cool guy and a really, really, really good guy to play his mind. He's really talented and he deserves it for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I want to talk a little bit, sort of as a team as a whole. Sort of how this early season success has been for you guys. Did you guys expect to sort of be at the top of the league this early on, or did you think, that everyone was going to have maybe a little more trouble being consistent because of how much roster turmoil there has been?
I mean, I think we think like the standing are now, J Dragon the first team and not all the second because we are like the few teams we stick together. Like we only change one player, J Dragon only change one player too, but the core, for example, the mid jungler and all that in our team stick together. And yeah, I think we expected to be like one the best sub team,
Yeah,
top
yeah,
two mids teams.
sure. Were there some other teams maybe that you expected to be better that aren't showing up, or have there been any surprises? This far in the season.
Think I thought the Tartarus Titan, the Aurora team is gonna
Mhm.
be really good, and I think it's gonna be really good with the time.
Sure.
But in paper, that team is gonna be really good in the time, I think. And I don't know, Valkyria win a set.
Yeah, they do.
That's really really good because they play 5 men with ping. That's
Very
so
impressive.
unfair.
Yeah,
That's
very
so
impressive.
unfair, and that's really good for them.
Sure, sure. Uh, you sort of been one of the main people to bring Tiamat into the mid lane, and rightfully so. You look great on it, jumping in and getting all the kills. Can you talk a little bit about what Tiamat brings to the mid lane, or is it just the latest OP god to play in mid?
A completely new mage. It's a
Sure.
different mage than others. It's
Mhm.
like a Persephone, but he has like other things. He has minions. He has things to spawn. Has a lot of damage. Has you are like a mage and assassin when you transform. That thing is really cool too. So yeah, I think it's really good for the mid laners. You need to learn how to play her
Mhm,
because
mhm.
if you are not good with the god, you're gonna lose. If you see in the SPL, a lot of people lose with Yamat, and a lot of people like the viewers and all that stuff think Yamat is bad.
Mhm.
But no, I think you need to know how to play her. It's like a Persephone. You need to know how to play her to be good and do well things.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think more and more mid laners are going to start picking up Tiamat just because it's not great to it doesn't feel great to ban her, especially in the first set of bans, I think.
Yeah, I mean that depends of the mid laners. The mid laners it depends on the for example, mid laners carry like Paul, like
Mhm.
me, like Horrywin is gonna pick Tiamat, but I don't think so. The other player is gonna pick Tiamat, and it's kind of hard to play Tiamat with this ping
Sure,
because
sure.
a lot of people from Europe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I wanted to ask a little bit about how your team likes to play the map. We have seen, I think, at least so far, that the jungle and support are really letting you sort of farm up the mid lane and the mid camps, to get ahead. Is that something that you are a big proponent of? You think getting mid ahead is an easy way to sort of maybe start a snowball in the game? And is that why you guys do that? I think we've sort of seen the farm being filtered to you in a lot of these sets.
I think that is something came to me. Like I farm a lot, and the team like adjust to me to like
Mhm.
let my farm run you too. It's like something like we have too many years play together, and for example, Ronju and Panerom know what I'm gonna do or what I'm like to do is like farm a lot and
Mhm.
get a lot of item, and that's why the boys like used to that and yeah, let me farm a lot and carry the game or try.
Sure, sure. All right, sort of my last question here. You guys are having all of this success right now. Do you feel like there is still room for improvement within your team? And what are you sort of looking to improve upon now that we've sort of started getting into phase one and now we're getting sort of really into the meat of the regular season?
Yeah, of course. Always are things to improve. Always you need to improve. And I think the best thing we need to improve is Julio.
Mm-hmm.
That have better communication with Julio,
Mm-hmm.
better communication with Jarker too, and all that. I think the big thing we need to improve is the communication first of all, because if you see the J Dragon set, the second game we lost for communication, hundred
Mm.
percent in the fire. So
Sure,
yeah, I think we need to improve a lot to people. Like a lot of people need to talk more.
mm.
We need to like talk more in the game and all that stuff.
Sure.
And if we improve that, I think we're gonna do so good. But yeah,
All right, Shinto, I want to thank you very much for letting me interview you. Thanks for all the great insights you gave us. I do want to sort of give you the spotlight here now. Anyone you want to shout out or call out, if there's anything that is, making you angry in scrims or anything, now is the time. Let the people know what is on your mind.
shout out to all the people support us. Un saludo a toda la gente de LATAM también, a los que hablan español. Un saludo a todos. Muchas gracias por apoyarnos. And the people speak English to support us too. Thank you very much. We are so grateful. Yeah, buy Leviathan merch,
Yeah,
the best merch in the league.
sure.
Yeah, thank you very much to all. Thank you to you too, Ape, to invite me.
Yeah, definitely. It was great to talk to you. And yeah, buy the merch, buy the in-game ward and icons as well. Support our favorite Smite SPL players while you can. And thanks a lot. Wish the best of luck for you, Shinto, and your whole team in Season 8.
Thank you, Ape.
Thanks, man. The Scarabs versus the Tartarus Titans, the Solar Scarabs, that is. I think this is basically the Scary D coming out party that we've sort of been waiting, 3 weeks for at this point, right? I think game one obviously was a little bit closer, but still went for the Titans, which I wasn't particularly expecting. I was hoping that the Scarabs would sort of show up, but game two, Scary D just sort of runs it from the beginning, and the Titans do everything in their control to throw it away.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus, right? Like, what was scary to you? Like 8-0 at like 10 minutes or something?
It
Like,
was popping off.
ridiculous.
He got his game.
I'm pretty sure he was like 9-0 at 10 minutes, actually, even. So, even better than that.
It was crazy. But you really do have to speak to the mental fortitude that the Scarabs did show there, because like for them to even like think about coming back from that, like Kaban made the funniest tweet, I have to say. It was something like, I know that you guys are seeing the SPL team, the Solar Scarabs, do this right now, but if you are in my games, this is a game that we have 6. We are getting out of this. Don't keep me in this game, please. And so, like, for them to just hang in there and really almost get it back from the brink of something that really should never have even gotten to that point, like, that was at least impressive for me. To see, considering.
Does it feel to you guys like Layers and Boronic still kind of have that deer in headlights type of I don't want to say play style, but just sort of that sort of reaction to, you know, when someone is coming out of the jungle in mid lane, you know, there's just a split second of hesitancy in their thought process still.
Yeah, they're fighting their instincts.
Yeah.
They got noticed through being ranked pub stars. They also were console monsters, but this is just a completely different field entirely. Essentially, Titans are the team that the Solar Scarabs want to be. The ragtag, we're just forming this team, but these are experienced SPL pros with that sort of mindset. Whereas this team, just because you are newly formed, doesn't mean that you're not cut out to be in the league. But it also comes down to your individuals, you know? Veronica and Layers are having a really tough time sort of getting into that mindset of it. And I don't know, more spankings, perhaps more spankings to give them more humility, just sort of toughen them up some more, because it's not going to cut it. I'm seeing Layers here. I think he's gone into more comfort picks now, as he's also whipped out the dodgy in a more aggressive style than what we saw Panatom, and then he's also gone for the Wheelish. These are ranked monster picks. Layers is the boy. He will carry you in ranked, but I don't know if those carry SPL that well.
Your thoughts on this set or either of these teams?
I think game one was a bit weird. I think they got cheesed on the blue, which made a big difference for Solo Troll playing Guan Yu into Wukong. I kind of expected Titans to win based just on individual skill, because I don't think either team is playing really well as a team yet. I think Scarabs were kind of building towards that, and obviously they have Layers and Bronic their first time, right, playing SPL.
Yes.
So they have a long way to go, and Titans to me is just like, I don't really care what Titans do until it's playoffs. I think all they really have to do is kind of make top 6, and then you're going to see how good they are, because, I mean, it was like that last year in Radiance, and I think it's going to be... I think the regular season will be even more difficult for them just because they have a scary kind of learning a new role, so it might take them a bit longer, but this is kind of a team you would expect them to beat based on just individual skill alone, and although it was messy, they did it, so that's kind of something to take and something to build on for them.
Sure. Let me. How about you? What are your thoughts?
I'm not gonna scoff at a win for the Titans. You know, they needed it for sure. I mean, when you see that list of names with no wins in the SPL, you're like, how? Right? But I do think that this was a revelation for them, right? That they were able to actually finally get that win. Like, their morale definitely were boosted off of that. I definitely think that that's kind of what they needed, right? And especially for Scary, of all people, to pop off.
Yeah.
You know, it's just what the doctor ordered, right? So hopefully, like, in this next week, they're going to be able to continue that, and hopefully we see Scary go 9-0 or whatever it is again, but this time not throwing in the mid game.
I did want to mention, I think Solar Troll sort of really popped off on the Herc game too. I think he was hitting, you know, these plucks just back to back to back. It felt like, I think we haven't really seen a lot of Hercules in the solo lane. Is this something that this team can build off of? I feel like Solar Troll has sort of been showing off his mechanics. Maybe not doing the best in the team fights and winning these games, but he's been showing off the mechanics pretty well, and definitely looks pretty good on even picks like Herc here, which hasn't really seen a lot of play in the solo lane.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's just a legitimately good player and knows his role really well, and I think that's a positive for kind of that team, as they have two side laners in Zap and Solo that are kind of really good players, and also I think Solo's been in the league enough now that he can probably step up and be a bit more of a leader. But I don't know. Maybe he is. I don't know what their team kind of makeup is like. So I think they're just a team that's gonna take 2 splits to kind of see how good they can be, and then make like a run at Worlds.
I think he's trying to take some pressure off of Layers, because depending on the team comps, the jungler will service the one side lane, another lane, all the lanes at the same time. That's definitely for more even advanced players at that level. They're all pros, but surely some of them are capable of a little more than others. This, if you have Zap being able to watch himself and even apply pressure to the lane, SOT being able to do the same thing on his side, then that core 3v3, which is the most important right now, can focus more on their own synergy. You know?
Yeah.
This is, I think it is him stepping up, but it's also like SOT. When he came into it, he was known for just kind of being very aggressive, a bit cocky, but he earned it, I think. You know?
I'm pretty sure he even did a what's it called? Is it driving strike? No, that's the push. Earthbreaker.
what?
I think he did a blink 2 into a tower. Maybe even
Dirty Blake
did.
Didn't he
combo.
die off the back of it?
I mean, you know, you gotta flex.
Yeah, but
you
he's
gotta flex
talent
on him
on him.
sometimes. You gotta flex on him sometimes. I feel that. All right. Any final thoughts about this set?
I know they're definitely in their heads, the Scarabs right now.
Sure.
Right? This was
Yeah.
this was a rough set for them. And then I didn't want to like spoil into the Kings set, but this one was probably upsetting for them. And then it just has not been a good week or past 3 for the Scarabs. And I'm hoping that their mental is okay right now. That's mostly what I'm concerned with, because after this many trial runs, you start looking like, all right, someone's got to step up or somebody's stepping out, basically, kind of thing. Did we draw on who would make the first player swaps?
I believe in our first episode, Mollusk said that he thinks the Scarabs are gonna make a swap sometime before the second phase. So
Mollusk is looking for a job.
maybe he's trying to get himself in the league.
Maybe he's
somewhere.
gunning for it. I don't know. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Atlantis Leviathans versus the Oni Warriors here. Unfortunately, not another great look for the Oni Warriors here in this set. I mean, they were able to play some things, but just didn't seem to really get off the ground in either of these games. I know, there's not too much really to talk about here because it just looks like Sheento popped off and sort of was getting fed a bunch of farm in these games. Is that sort of the takeaway that you guys have gotten from the set? Or is there something deeper that I'm missing?
They got everything they wanted in these drafts, man. Like, these are just iconic for the whole lot of them. All these picks. You got Honor, King Arthur, Susanna, Umoja, Raijin, quote-unquote meta slaves, but it's stuff that they just severely pop off on.
Sure.
And Oni, while they're trying to get into it with themselves, I don't think you should be giving that many away. Like, yes, make your own drafts and whatnot, but maybe think about taking some of these, especially because they're not the craziest. You try to take something from Dardez and you end up like, oh, I hate Afro. Why did I play her? But maybe don't give up all the Honors and the better Sobex and the.
I mean, they even got Tiamat game 1, so
yeah,
Tiamat and the Wheelix and Tyr. Julio's Tyr has looked very good too. I mean, there seem to be just a lot of picks that the Leviathans are performing on, and yeah, I agree with you. I think the picks and bans might need some switching up here from the Warriors. Biggie, what about you? What are your thoughts on this set?
I think it's just a mismatch kind of in where the two teams are at the moment. The Leviathans have basically been here besides Julio, but I think, in my opinion, if you want to be on ping, Solar is probably the role that you kind of, if you had to choose one, you would want to be in, so I don't think they're that affected. And he's also playing really well, which helps. He's not like in bad form. I think the Warriors are just not as good a team right now. They're just a West team, and it's just a mismatch. The drafting, I mean, Leviathans, I think it's always easy to say a Leviathans got what they want because they play the same 4 gods, same 5 gods. So you're never really going to be like, oh yeah, we banned them out. They play 4 or 5 gods each, and so they're always going to get one pick that they like to play, right? And so then if they win, you're going to be like, oh, they just gave them this sick draft. But it's like, you have to pick your poison with them a bit, because they are that team that just literally plays the gods they like, and then they play a certain way. Like they just want to play kind of. I think they're a bit more aggressive early game this year, but then they kind of just play well late game, and they're kind of peaking, well not peaking, but they always do well at the start of splits. I think the interesting thing for me will be, are they going to keep grinding every day, double scrimming, and then they're going to get to the playoffs and kind of get figured out again and not really perform.
Basically, a lot remains to be seen, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but I think they look like they could evolve a bit more this year. I feel like, with the way they're practicing and the way they're kind of playing in SPL, I think they are improved, and I think they can potentially kind of take that next step this year.
Sure. Let me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, like Biggie said, when they play a certain number of gods, you're never gonna get a draft where they're like, oh well, this person doesn't play that god. I mean, the one like kind of surprising thing for me is just like how well Yarkor has adjusted to this new role. Like, I think that he legitimately has been performing well every single game. Like, even in their loss against the Dragons, like he did show up. But it just like I'm so impressed by what he's been able to do in this new role. And it's not even like solo and ADC are really that similar aside from them being side lanes. So, pop off, I guess, right?
Yeah. I've been super impressed with his sort of just aggressiveness. Like, he's just jumping in on her and things like that. I would have expected, you switch to this role. Maybe you play a little more passively, try not to overextend or like overplay your hand. And Yarkor's just like, nah, man, let's go in. We're gonna jump in. We're gonna pillar stun them, and I'm gonna win every 1v1 that I take.
Not during a crit meta.
Yeah, I guess.
You came in at the best time.
Sure.
Yeah, the one build wonder right now.
Yeah, I think he's legit. I think when we first started scrimming, it was a bit rough, but it took about a month, and now I think he's a legitimate ADC player. Like, he's not a weakness for them, so they kind of not lucked out, but they made I guess, whether you say like it's right or wrong, they made a good decision and they're just making it work, and he's playing really well, so that's good for them, I guess.
Do you feel like there are some roles where it's like easier to switch into, especially if you've been playing already at a sort of SPL level, or is it just sort of a specific thing to Yarkor maybe being a good mechanical player and just having the time to grind ADC gods and things like that made the switch sort of seamless in at least the viewer's eyes?
I don't think any role is easy to switch to at SPL level at all. I think there's very few. If you think about it, there's very few successful role changes. I think Twig had a good one, but it took him a long time last year to become like a good mid. Outside of that, I think I can't really think of too many. Panda Cat, I guess,
Cyclone.
and kind of Cyclone. I mean, there's just some players that are just good. Like Cyclone's just someone he's kind of good at everything he does. Like, he could probably play 3 roles at an SPL level at least, and I think it's just the person. And like Lemmy said, I don't think switching solo to ADC is kind of opposite in a way. So it's just a good player, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it comes down mostly to player.
Yeah.
Some of them are very sort of old school solo players where very Omega. Just you got your Vamana, your Bolognas, your completely stray away from those. If you find though that they in their free time like to off roll a lot, those tend to have a better mind for the role swaps. That's why for Cyclone it was a lot easier, and Yarkor, I think he just frags a lot on ADC whenever he gets the chance. It's solo laner's joke, but it's kind of their brain dead role is ADC, because you just farm, you farm, you kill the guy, you kill the jungler that shows up, mid laner comes eventually, and then like you're fine. So it's
I'm sure the solo laners love ADC because it's always a party in the duo lane, right?
I think they've boiled it down though. Like that's probably the best thing is that when you're coming into a new role, you've boiled down to the fundamentals, and that's, to me, the strong fundamentals are going to carry you, and that's why he's able to 1v1 people who have been ADC for so long. Like, he got his 1v1 on Barra as soon as it started, and it really was just basic fundamentals where anyone could see he had the upper hand there, and he just walked at Barra, just so brazen. And yeah, there you go. I think it was he's got new eyes to the role that's been around for so long, and it's been doing him wonders.
Sure. Let's move on to the final set of week 3, which was the Solar Scarabs versus the Camelot Kings here. And I'm definitely not going to mince any words. This was just a stomp through and through, I think, for the Camelot Kings. I think game 2 probably was a little bit closer, but game 1, I don't know, man. I wasn't able to catch too much of it, but I don't know if the support Circuit was the play. I don't know if, Tiamat looks great in Baronic's hands, and, of course, Variety is playing King Arthur, and he's going to look great on King Arthur no matter what. And we see Twig pull out this Fenrir. I don't think we've seen Twig play Fenrir in quite a long time, so that was exciting to see. What are you guys' initial thoughts on this set? Do you guys expect the Scarabs to sort of fall this flat, or are the Kings just far and ahead better than this Scarabs team?
Not like this. All right, so this is the one that I got to stream with Deathwalker, right? And I was like, yo, tell me about this draft, and like to keep it rated G, it was dog crap. He says for the Solar Scarabs that they have picked the worst possible draft you could. Like, you have to do it on purpose essentially to get it this bad. Not only with you've got setup characters that are really heavy on it, the Athena, into a Tiamat, right? There's no burst. It's very over time, very slow. And then you've got this Circuit setting up for who exactly? Not only that, though, you put the Athena in the jungle and the Circuit in support. So it says it's the worst draft you could have possibly picked, and then they still went and made it worse. The only saving grace was, the solo troll on Achilles. But they lost all the pressure in the solo lane. And according to him, that game was over from the drafts, and then physically in the game by like minute 2 or 3.
Yeah.
They just couldn't do anything.
Sure.
Second game, big improvement. Like at least draft-wise, it made a lot more sense. Like there was no way that you could make it any worse. So it was just guaranteed a lot better. A lot closer, if you go by the kills, and even the gold was way better there. And it shows that I guess they don't take it too personally after the first kind of game, or maybe they are very capable of going, wow, that first one was horrible. Let's actually get our heads into it. But I know even Bobby kind of popped off on Twitter afterwards. So it's definitely in his mind right now.
Feel the same way?
I mean, these guys are kind of like an emotional team, right? Like, Layers has been known to, like, not have, like, the strongest mental in the world. Like, he's been improving a lot, especially over the past couple of years. Like, being a leader in the SCC has been really helpful for him. But yeah, I mean, I can really see that a lot of these guys, except for Zap, are on the younger side of the league. So it's not necessarily that like they are not good players, because they are good players. They're phenomenal players. But it's just like when you receive loss after loss, and you go and you see Twitch chat spamming, these guys shouldn't even be in the league, things like that. It gets to you, right? And like these people have not had, this many eyes on them really in a long time. So it feels bad for them, right? But they are definitely learning and doing better every single time, at least in their play. Like Frost said, the draft was not great, but that's something that can be fixed the next game even. So it's really just about getting over these mental hurdles, accepting that every single game that they do make progress and they do show that they're getting better as a squad. It's just all about, when is that going to be good enough to really give them a convincing win. And honestly, I love these guys. They're great people. It's just like really hard for them to get like any advancement here when they are so clearly the underdogs of the league.
Sure. Biggie, what'd you think when you see Bobby run to duo lane on the Circuit? Were you just thinking, all right, easy dub for the boys, or what was going through your mind there?
I was surprised. I thought it would be Circuit jungle. I just don't see Layers as kind of a setup player. I think he's more of a carry player, but I think he's maybe still trying to figure out what exactly he wants to play. I think that they had a game plan, and they just didn't execute it. They tried to invade blues and they died, and then it was just kind of snowballed because they tried to invade our blue died, and then we walked to theirs, and then at that point, like, Harry was ahead and Big Man was kind of just out pushing and out rotating, and we had Kepri, and they're trying to play they're trying to pick people with Saket, right? And they just kind of got run over. I think the second game, We made some mistakes. I think we got picked around red, or I think they picked Netroid, and then they killed two of us invading red. Where there's a bit of a communication breakdown. I think Big Man and Sam expected Twig to be there, and then for me, we just made it like a really terrible gold free call, and we were just behind, and we were kind of. We felt like we would beat them late game if we didn't get any more kind of snowballed. And I feel like we played pretty perfectly from behind. We just traded everything until about 25, 26 minutes, and then we just beat them in one fight and won the game. So
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about Captain Twig picking up this Fenrir? I think we've seen it basically in every single set that you guys played this past weekend. And I think we've even been seeing Fenrir jungle sort of from other junglers as well. What does Fenrir bring, to the table that makes him such a useful pick in a lot of these comps?
I think it's just something he wants to play, but it's also it works well with the way we want to play. You can kind of dive, you can kind of set up. It's just the way we want to play the game right now just fits into our strategy, I guess.
Sure.
And I don't know, he's kind of happy to pick it into anything. I pick it into a Wheelix, so just kind of slamming it, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking that. He's into a wheeler to the disrespect.
Yeah.
Fenrir just doesn't even care about a Wheelix, honestly. He just has, again, it kind of just attributes to that simple and clean style of he has dive, he has safety, he has setup. He kind of has it all. And he's not like the hardest carry character in the world, but he can do damage, he can be tanky, he can really just adjust to whatever you need. He's not the perfect character by every means. He does get hard countered by a couple of things, but other than that, he's just a generally very safe pick that does what you want in a lot of instances.
Am I missing anything about this set? I think we sort of covered most of the major beats. Frost, I think you had some things to say.
Oh, yes. In a world with monotonous builds, I love watching Twig. I love watching how he plays. Look at his build. It's disgusting. Just Ninja Tab by Stone Cutting Sword Pridwin. And some tankiness, more erudite. It's almost like he, especially in the second game.
He went Spectral Armor in the second game.
It's almost like he wants to be pulled in. Yeah. It's free. It's a free blink, really. Just straight into an Awalish, go straight into your ultimate, grab somebody, put on shield. It's I don't know. Is it 5,000 IQ or did he just not care?
I think Kivo built very similarly with the Eye of the Jungle as well. So I think that item is getting valued a lot more because generally, a lot of the big swings are going to be in the jungler on Fire Giant. So, that item is pretty strong once it gets to Protector. So, building Fenrir that way is an option, right? He has a lot of flexibility in what starter he can get. So that kind of also adds to, why that character exists in this meta right now.
Sure. All right, it's time for us to make our picks for week 4. Let's start with the Titans versus the Valkyries. Frost, I think you're first on my list here of who I want to hear give picks. Who you got here? Titans versus Valkyries.
Titans having their glow up, having a few good sets here. I think they're on a nice streak now. Maybe got enough air under their wings to keep on floating for a while. 2-0 Titans.
2-0 Titans. All right, Lermy, how about you go next?
And while I agree that the Titans definitely are on an updraft here, they have been doing a lot better, I still think the Valkyries are on a very similar level to them. I'm really hoping that there's not too much ping diff in this one, but I still have faith that the Valkyries can take at least one, so I'm still going to say Titans, but I'm going to go 2-1 Titans.
All right. Biggie, who you got here? Titans versus Valkyries.
I think 2-0 Titans. But I feel like Valkyries, having seen kind of Titans' strategy last week in game 1, and probably means they won't get a free game. So
sure.
I still think they should 2-0 Valkyries, considering everything like ping and just kind of the way the two teams are trending at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Does anyone know if Loki is going to be available, or is he still banned?
He will not. He is
There's your
gonna
guy.
be actually
All right. Well,
next week.
that makes it easy. 2-0 Titans.
Yeah, no,
then.
he's banned until next patch, which is next Tuesday.
Okay, okay. Well, I think that might have been the saving grace here for Johnny if he was able to get Loki in these games, but I don't know. We haven't really seen him perform as well on other gods other than Loki so far in the SPL. So I think I will give it to the Titans 2-0. Lermy, why don't you start us off with the next one, the Jade Dragons versus the Olympus Bolts. I think this is a pretty big test for Barra and the boys here.
I mean, yes, but also no, because I mean, like, I'm not trying to like fangirl anything, right? But I do think the Jade Dragons are gonna easily take this 2-0. Like, I think that the Bolts have been improving greatly, but with the Jade Dragons just like being in their zone, like I don't see it going any other way.
All right. So Dragons 2-0?
Yeah.
Biggie, how about you? Jade Dragons versus Olympus Bolts.
Yeah, I think Dragons are just playing too well right now. I think they're playing pretty cleanly. I wouldn't be surprised by an upset, but I just think the Dragons are playing better at the moment. So I think 2-0 to Dragons.
Frost, round us out here. Jade Dragons versus Olympus Bolts.
I said they would be undefeated, so 2-0 is my heart answer. My brain answer is I don't know if being undefeated for a whole first round is more to them than trolling, because it wouldn't be a top team that they throw to. It would be someone like the Bolts or the Scarabs, and they face both of them this week. So my heart's not going to be having a good time, but 2-0 Jade Dragons.
Sounds good. Biggie, why don't you start us off here for the next match, which is the Oni Warriors versus the Tartarus Titans.
I think it's a pretty evenly matched. I think that Ernie are playing well enough to beat Titans. I think they might have a bit better teamwork. So I'm going to say Ernie 2-1 in that one.
All right, Oni 2-1 from Biggie. Frost, how about you here?
These are so close to me. Oh, man. I feel like this might be the only 3-game set. I think it's going to be 2-1, but in the end, I think the Titans are going to take it.
All right. Lermy, how about you? Oni Warriors versus Tartarus Titans.
I think I'm with Biggie on this one. I think that the Warriors have just shown that they are consistently in better shape than the Titans. Not by much, but still slightly better. So I will also say 2-1 for the Warriors.
Yeah, the one thing that I think is sticking in my mind is that the Titans have no ping problems. So that might push it in their favor a little bit, especially if maybe, they can cheese Fred a little bit. If they know that he might get tilted from the ping. It might be something that they look to take advantage of. So I will give it to the Titans 2-1. All right, I think we're back at the front of the line here, Frost. So why don't you do Leviathans versus Valkyries? Who you got in that one?
It's going to be a 2-0, and these boys are not going to take it easy on the Valkyries. This is a sort of, I don't know, one of those special victories that you really hold near and dear to you. Because I think the Leviathans paid the Valkyries the respect of still sort of having an SSG feel to them and being, Sanguine Prime. If this is their Prime counterpart, then beating this shows that Leviathans are the number one. It's them. In this style of play. So 2-0, and it's going to be bloody.
Lermy, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be 2-0 for the Leviathans. I think this is going to be them just like, if I'm looking into the future right now through a crystal ball and I'm like watching these games in the future, this is like 30-5 kill game that I'm going to be watching. Like, it's going to be insane. And they'll just kind of run it down at them as much as possible.
Leviathans 2-0 for you?
Yeah, for sure.
Biggie, how about you?
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything to add. I feel like it's just really one-sided. It would take a pretty major upset for Valkyries to even win one game, in my opinion. So Leviathans 2-0.
All right, Lermy, let's stick with you here for the Bolts versus the Camelot Kings. I think this is probably one of the better matchups we have this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think these are probably the closest teams aside from the Warriors and the Titans, but I do think that the Kings have an edge. Although, the bolts do have that surprise factor where sometimes they pop off and look insane, and other times they look just fine.
Yeah.
So I do think that there is a possibility for the bolts to take this one, but I think just from what we've seen, I think the Kings are a lot more consistent. So I'm just gonna say 2-1 Kings.
Biggie, I'm sure you're saying 2-0 Kings, right?
Yeah, I think it's a big game for us because it kind of tells us where we are exactly. Like, are we third or are we fourth? I think we'll win 2-1, but I think the coin flip has a lot to do with it. Kind of choice of side.
Sure.
And it's also, I think Bolts are kind of a strange team. They're like for me, they're like a really good scrim team that underperforms a bit on game day, and I think we're a pretty average scrim team that kind of performs well on game day. So it should be an interesting set at least.
Ross, who you got in this one? Kings versus Bolts.
Right. So I think the Kings have had a really rough start in who they've been facing, whereas the Bolts have kind of had a bit of an easier coast. And I think this is where they're going to go for the crossroads, and the Bolts are going to get knocked out 0-2. And I think it's going to be very convincing, very telling. I think variety and genetics are going to make some nasty things happen solo side.
Yeah, you're telling me he comes when he wants. He comes when he wants. Harry Cummings is going to be doing some work.
The very one.
Yeah, I think I got the Kings here too. Probably going to be a 2-1 from me. All right, last game of week 4 is going to be the Jade Dragons versus the Solar Scarabs. Biggie, why don't you start us off on this one? Who you got?
I think this is just the same as the Leviathans Valks game. It's like a top 2 team versus a bottom 2 team. But it's in this case, it's probably. I mean, the top team versus like probably maybe the bottom team. Although I guess they did beat Valkyries, but I think it's just. I just don't think the Scarabs are good enough right now, kind of as a team to beat Dragons.
Sure.
So 2-0 to Dragon.
Ross, I imagine it's a 2-0 Dragons from you.
Yeah, still keeps up the streak, but oh man, the odds of a throw. No, I don't even think this one's possible. I think it's just a very, very 2-0.
Lermy?
Yeah, I think it'll be a simple and clean 2-0, but I think that this match actually will give the Scarabs a lot to learn from. Like, regardless of outcome, they're going to be playing against arguably the number 1 seed, right? So they will, just kind of get to see how it's done firsthand. So,
Sure.
Hopefully they don't take it too bad on the mental, but this match will be important for them to, take back and really just observe what the Dragons are doing and how they can take from that strategy as well.
Yeah, well, you're not going to catch me not voting for the Scarabs here, so I'm going to go 2-0 Scarabs, right? Gotta support my boys. I think that that wraps up week 4 here. Thanks for watching the SPL Rundown this week. Be sure to catch us every week after the SCC on Thursdays on twitch.tv/SmiteGame. If you want to catch up with extended cuts and past episodes of our show, feel free to watch them on the APM Productions YouTube channel. As always, if you have any recommendations for guests or player interviews, feel free to DM me on Twitter at APM2 or at APM Productions. And finally, I want to give my wonderful guests here a great gratitude and thanks. And why don't we give them a chance to shout out? Frost, why don't you start us off here?
Same as always, the other Frost on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter.
Lermy?
You can follow me at LermyWormy on Twitter, and then LermyWormy with 2 Y's at the end on Twitch.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Biggie. Why don't you shout yourself out here?
I don't have any shout-outs. I think Twitter's terrible. So, thanks for having me, I guess.
All right.
Facebook.
No shout-outs.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Biggie. And thank you for watching the SPL Rundown. See you guys next week.